Hello and welcome back to Board Crazy. My name is D, and today I will be reviewing Merchants of Dunhuang with
Will.
That's
With
right.
Will. I have nothing clever to...
Good. So, before we get to actually reviewing this board game, we're going to run my introduction to it with a little rules explanation from our gameplay video, if you haven't checked that out yet, so that you have a little understanding of how the game works before we talk about what we think. So,
I'll put a timestamp.
Yep, he's going to put a timestamp. Here it goes. Merchants of Dunhuang is a game for 2 to 4 players designed by Gabriele Bubola and published by Mandoo Games. In this game, players are competing to become the most prosperous merchant in the city of Dunhuang in China, one of the major stops on the ancient Silk Road. This is accomplished by controlling the goods that are being traded throughout the city. To set up, the 8 double-sided character tiles are shuffled up and then arranged into a circle, with the shuffled goods deck placed in the middle of that circle. 8 cards are then drawn from this deck, and 1 is placed next to each character. Each player, meanwhile, draws 3 cards from the deck and keeps 1 of them, with the other 2 being removed from the game entirely. Each player also receives an equal number of coins, determined by the player count, and then the last player in player order takes the camel pawn and places it on one character of their choice. The game is played in clockwise order, and on a player's turn, they must first move the camel pawn clockwise at least 1 space to a new character. The camel may be moved farther, but each additional space after the first costs the player 1 coin. Once the camel stops on a character, then the player takes the goods card next to that character and might either add it to their hand or place it in front of them in their shop. If the player already has 1 or more cards of the taken good in their shop, then they are stacked in a way so that it is clear how many they have in total. If adding a card to their shop means the player now has the most or is tied for having most of that good, they then also take into their possession the corresponding majority token. After this, the player gets to choose a bonus. They may either use the special action of the character that the camel stopped on, or simply take 3 coins. Then the player checks to see if they've met the victory conditions. If they have 4 majority tokens and at least 4 different goods in their hand, then they immediately win the game. If these conditions, however, are not met, then the empty market spaces are filled in and play proceeds to the next player. If, however, the goods deck runs out before any player achieves victory, then the winner is determined by points. Players earn 2 points for each majority token they have, 1 point for each prestige token they've collected from special actions, and also points for goods that they have the most of or equal most of in their hand, with each being worth its associated number. Naturally, the player who then scores the most points in that method is the winner. Now let's get started. All right. Merchants of Dunhuang.
Great intro, D.
I know. Thanks.
So, when I first saw this game, D, I was, I guess you could say, a little concerned because, the game, our English rulebook that Mandoo sent us was on a printout, on 8x11 paper and all that. And I'm like, oh no, I was like, I knew it wasn't a prototype, but I was like, because all the other games they ever sent us had English rulebooks, so I'm like, are they just not necessarily thinking that this is going to appeal to Westerners, or like, what's the deal there? And I'm happy to report that that's not the case.
No.
At a broad level, this is one of those games that is quite easy to learn, but quite difficult to master.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I guess I might have had similar concerns initially.
Yeah.
After reading the rulebook, though, I became fairly optimistic. I thought,
Yeah.
This sounds like it might be a neat little game. And I think I would say that it's a neat little game.
Yes, it is.
I actually don't have much in the way of complaints when it comes to the actual gameplay. I like most of the things going on here. My favorite aspect, probably the sort of, I don't know if you want to call it like a rondelle sort of thing, the circle of merchants. I really enjoy that mechanic, the way you move the camel as the game, as it happens in the game. Having to pay to move at farther than you would just taking a simple one-step move. But I like the way that the merchants kind of work, and that they kind of, the added element of strategy that they bring to the game. Like, there's an obvious strategy in terms of what you put on your shop, what you keep in your hand, close to your chest as a secret. That stuff, it's pretty straightforward. It's fun, but it's pretty straightforward. But with the merchants, so in a lot of games, this sort of thing might seem like a problem, where like there's not like an obvious balance to them. Like some of them are more generally useful than others, which are going to be more situationally useful. But I really like it because of the way that things go around here. You actually kind of have to consider that when you're making your move, because where your opponent might land might end up hurting you more than the help you get from where you end up going. So I think that's really neat. You have to really think about that, not just what's going to benefit you, but where you might actually be leaving your opponent in terms of the actions that they can perform, and also the good cards that are available with those merchants. So I thought that was great.
Yeah, I'm with you, D. I think that this is one of those games where you look at it and you're just going to be assuming that you're going to be, collecting cards to, collect sets, so you can have control of those sets so you can score them at the end of the game. But that's not really, that's kind of what it is at like an essential level. But you're right, like with the rondel mechanic, choosing which merchants to use, like which powers are theirs to use at what moment, sometimes you might have to make concessions and decide, I'm going to use this one, even though it's not 100% useful for me in the moment, but if I know which one my opponent wants to go to. Like you can tell from what they're doing, and then you can kind of, and then there's, I guess what I'm saying is it's so simple on the surface, but then there's so much nuance in whether it be the control markers or the merchant and all these different things, and then that rondel, how many spots you move the camel, all that. It's,
there's I wouldn't say this game does anything particularly innovative, but everything it does, it incorporates well, and well thought out. In terms of like the majority tokens, as they're called, for when you have the most or equal most of a particularly good, I like those a lot. They remind me of Kanagawa. In the way that you kind of claim the tokens in that, or tiles or whatever in that game when you meet a certain criteria. But unlike that game where you just keep it for the rest of the game, and this one obviously they can be traded back and forth, which I kind of like more. Obviously it's a different game, it's a different thing entirely, but I like it here because in a game like Kanagawa, you can be working towards something and someone takes it, you're really messed up. In this, you can there is a good back and forth. There is the player interaction sort of aspect that it creates.
It's funny that you don't need to get a majority.
I do like
take
that.
It. Yeah,
I actually had to reread that in the rule book just to make sure I was understanding that, because it's so unusual that a tie allows something to trade. But
in because so say someone took the bamboo. You have one bamboo. I think it's like the number 6 card.
Yeah.
Then someone else takes number 6. Well, they get the control marker now, even though you have the same amount.
Yeah.
And what I like about that you take it even when it's a tie, is that it's almost like when you're playing like musical chairs, because you want to make sure that you're the one who has control when the music stops, like when you get to the end game or something like that. You know what I mean? You get what I'm saying? So you're constantly trying to balance okay, is he going to take that card next and take control back? Well, because you can kind of tell with the deck as it's going down, like when the end game's coming, if it's going to end that way.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about the end game conditions and the fact that there's different ways to win, but that alone to me was fun. Like trying to especially on a 2-player game, figuring out when I want to go and get that control token. So that was good.
Yeah, there's a real balance you need to maintain in terms of your shop and your hand. I think is really really well done. It really works. Again, it's not nothing mind-blowing, but it provides a good little challenge. We can talk about the endgame mechanics now.
I think we should, because of how much they inform what strategies you're going to take. Because many games like this, like I already sort of said just a minute ago, it's kind of you draft these cards, you build the sets, and then you just score them at the end.
Yeah.
And in this game, it can go to a scoring system that's a little bit more convoluted than that. But there's the other way you can win, in which you can just outright win.
Yeah.
If you collect a specific amount of control tokens, and then you have 4 different cards in your hand. I would say that because it has those two different endgame conditions and two different ways to win, it creates a lot of strategy and a lot of intensity throughout like a session. In that, like when you see someone getting close, and you're not sure, like, do they have doubles in their hand? You know, because of one more control marker, they could just win outright.
Yep.
At least it definitely leads to some very tense moments, and it's quite exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. I like the scoring system. You did mention it was convoluted.
It is a little bit.
I mean, it is a little bit. It's certainly not. You need to read through it to understand exactly what's going on. But I like it. I like that. It rewards both. What you have in your hand, obviously, but you can't just ignore the shop aspect then because you're not gonna be able to score anything. And also, I kind of like the balance of, the cards that are more prevalent are also more valuable in that. In that system. So, well, they were going to be easier to sort of stack in your store, your shop, if you want to use them that way. It's oftentimes more valuable to add them to your hand, so you have to make a choice there. So yeah, they're there.
But what I like about that is it does, like you said, it in essence, it encourages you to play and have a diverse strategy.
Yeah.
You can't just hoard. It's not a good strategy to just hoard the highest scoring cards because you're going to need the more rare, lower scoring cards to likely have a shop that's like diverse, so you can have more of the control tokens. This is a game that it's going to be very rare for there to be complete blowouts, because if it is a blowout, it's just going to end by someone winning outright. And if it goes to scoring, it's going to be close. It's actually really intelligent design. Because, as we just said, because of the way the game is scored, it encourages you to make sure that you have your a piece of every pie, And it's, I had a blast learning, and I still would like to go back and play this even more. Because I feel like there's so much more that I've yet to experience or understand with this game. There's a lot of intricacies.
I'd like to play it with more players, for
yes,
sure.
that too. So
obviously we've been stuck with 2. It plays very well with 2, though.
It does play very well with 2.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's probably enough about the gameplay. We can talk about the product a little bit here in terms of its production. Not anything particularly noteworthy, I would say. I think the art's pretty good.
Yeah, you said it reminds you of like a Days of Wonder game.
Yes.
It does. It definitely harkens...
In terms of style.
Yeah.
Not so much in build quality. It's all, it's lots of cardboard for the most part. Nothing going to blow you away in that respect. The Campbell's wood.
There's a wooden camel.
That's yeah. And the merchants are all, nicely stylized. So I don't have any huge complaints. It's not going to wow you, though.
Yeah, I don't know what the MSRP is going to be on this in America.
Yeah. Also, this is obviously not a product for American consumption, as there's no American rulebook or English rulebook or, Western consumption, really. So I don't know if there will be any alterations made.
I doubt it.
Shall we score it?
Let's score it.
All right. Well, obviously we're quite positive on this one, it sounds like.
Did the sandwich bags come with the game?
No, those. I guess if there's another critique, that there's no way to store all the little bits. So unless you want them all just loose in the box, you're going to have to provide your own container. Yeah, in terms of final thoughts, obviously, I really like this game. I think it's really fun. I like the strategy involved. I really don't have much in the way of complaints at all in terms of how it plays. Easy to learn, quick to play,
difficult to master.
Yeah. Good for a pretty good age range, though, too. I think younger kids could probably enjoy this one within reason. Yeah, like you kind of said, it offers as much as many bigger games do in a pretty small package.
Yep.
I would assume is going to be a pretty reasonable price. So I'm gonna give this a 4.5 stars out of 5. I really liked it.
Yeah, I found that I've said it many times already in this review. I don't know how many times I've cut it or edited it out, but I just find the gameplay experience in this to be very gratifying. And I like the fact that each time we've played it, I've learned more and more about it. We didn't even mention that there's enough merchants that not every session is going to be the same. I think they even mentioned in the rulebook.
They're double-sided.
How many like possible varieties
like
are there?
400,000 or something, technically.
There's 400,000 possible different setup combinations.
Yeah, which I mean,
it's kind of a mislead because eventually you're going to get used to stuff. But the point is that
you're going to lose track at some point.
At least so far for us, every time we've played it, it's been slightly new, and I've approached the gameplay slightly differently, which means that there are different strategies.
Yeah, obviously the arrangement will be changed each time.
There's a lot of replayability.
Yeah.
So, and I guess that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
And again, I think it's very stimulating mentally in a way you don't expect games like this to be. And yes, it's a big bang in a little package. So I'm going to give this game what?
That should be the headline on the video: Big Bang Little Package.
I'm giving it an A-.
A-. That's pretty similar to what I did then. Okay. Thank you for watching this review of Merchants of Dunhuang. You rubbed off me. Dunhuang. Merchants of Dunhuang. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment if you have any thoughts. Maybe better taglines than what Will has thought up. You can, of course, subscribe to the channel. I don't think I've said that yet. Our social media is down below if you want to check those out in the description. And hit the notification bell so you know when our videos come out. Because even we don't, really. They just happen. But yeah, that's going to do it. Come back next time for our next gameplay video where we'll be, well, we're going to be amusing ourselves.
Yeah.
Safe to say.
Well, amusement park is what he meant.
Well, okay, that's the pun, I guess. Thanks, Will. Until then, thank you for watching, everybody. Goodbye.
See you next time.